Let me check my sound real quick. Let me check my sound. Okay, that's fine. Okay, sorry. I am late, I know. I'm sorry. Hello, fellow witches and wizards. My name is Phoenix Ginny, and before we get started with the stream, I wanted to talk about something very important to me. I wanted to talk about my Patreon. Did you know I have a Patreon? I only mention it every video I do. I actually have a lot of new people to the channel, so maybe they don't know. Maybe you don't even know what Patreon is. I will tell you what Patreon is. Patreon is a website where creators can post the stuff they make for their fans. They can post artwork if you're an artist, or music if you're a musician, or pretty much anything. I, myself, am a writer. I write short stories and poetry and essays and other stuff. I write a lot of things. And I post my work there on Patreon. And if you'd like to check my Patreon out, it's linked in the description. And I will show it to you here. This is my page. This is what it looks like. If you go looking for me, you won't find me because I'm not big enough for their search engine. So if you want to find me, that link in the description is your best friend. And it will take you here to my page. It won't look quite like this because this is from my view. But it'll look similar to this. And this is where I post my stuff. And I have a bunch of stuff on there. And if you are watching this and you're kind of rolling your eyes like, oh, she's asking for money. Because this is for, because that's what patrons do, is they post their stuff. And in order to enjoy their content, you pay a monthly subscription of $5 a month. And I say to you, yes, you're damn right I'm asking for money. Because doing this, doing YouTube, and doing, and trying to keep up with everything is a lot of work. And YouTube doesn't pay me. And so, yeah, I am asking for money. I'm also dirt poor. So yeah, if you would be so kind and become a patron, that'd be awesome. And I'd be super grateful. In fact, the one patron I do have saved my butt this month. I was able to pay my rent because of that one patron. So thank you very much. I'm thinking of putting more credit to patrons and stuff. I only have one. So, I don't know, I do credit them for stuff I put in Patreon, or at least one thing I put in Patreon because it was a video, but I gotta think of more stuff to do for patrons, but I was gonna wait to do that until I have more, but I would like to think more about that. But so if you would like to enjoy some writing content, and there's plenty of stuff on here, you can come to my Patreon and you can sign up, and you can subscribe for is there a way I could look? There is a way I can look at it from the patron view. This is what you will see, my latest posts, and there's categories you can pick from. There's free, there's Harry Potter stuff, there's fan fiction. I have a whole Halloween category, short story category, and there's many categories. So if you're looking for something specific, you can just click on them. Or you can just scroll down to see the most recent to the oldest post on here. And it's $5 a month. However, it's really easy to cancel. So if you don't want to pay $5 a month, if there's just one thing you want to enjoy, you can pay the $5, enjoy it, and then unsubscribe so that you're not continuously paying $5 a month if you don't want to. It's something you can decide month to month. If you decide, I'm not interested in what she's putting out this month, I'm going to unsubscribe. And then you hear next month I'm doing something you are interested in, and you can be like, oh, I want that, and then resubscribe. It's not difficult. I've done it myself with other content, with other people's content. I've done that myself. I'm just like, I really don't want to pay monthly for this. I just want this one thing, so I'll pay one time and then get it and then unsubscribe. You can do that. It's not even hard. There's also free stuff on here. If you can see right here, I have a whole category of free stuff. It's all on there. All my fan fiction is free because I don't like to make content that's, piggybacking off of somebody else. I feel icky about that. There's probably also laws about that, but whatever. So there's that. Click the link if you're interested in essays, short stories, poetry, personal narratives, fan fiction, mystery novels, horror stories. I have it on there. I've been doing this for almost a year now, so I have something for every month. I post content every month. So come check it out. It's great. If it's not great, let me know. That is also something I would want to know about. And I also would ask you to click the heart if you've read it, so that I know that you liked it or interacted with it at least. It's really, really helpful. So that being said, I'm going to tell you what this month, for the month of February, I posted this, Chapter 1 of the Applewood Tales, Secrets at Crandall School, Chapter 1, because I wrote an entire mystery novel. And this is Chapter 1, and Chapter 1 is free, but the rest of the chapters you will have to become a patron to access. And if you're the kind of person that wants to read but would rather be read to, stay tuned for that, because I will be posting videos as well. Patreon Miracle Worker has allowed us to post videos, and that's great because as you'll see in a couple minutes, anyway, soon, I will be not just posting my writing, but I will post videos of myself reading it to you with some music and sound effects and things like that. In fact, I did that for my Halloween short story here, which I have access to it because it's mine. But you do have to become a patron to enjoy this video and this short story. But I made a whole video reading the short story, and it has pictures. I commissioned an illustrator to do some illustrations for me, and there's sound effects and music. It's great. I worked really hard on that, so you might enjoy that. And I plan on doing more stuff like that in the future. But also, I also have another video. So if you're not interested in writing, I do have videos, and I'll have more videos coming. Most particularly this video, because ta-da, I finally did it. If you don't remember, a while back, I was like, oh, hey, I have this special project coming up, and I'm going to be releasing it soon. I don't want to spoil it too much. Stay tuned. Yeah, well, that was months ago. I made this video. I recorded myself watching all the Harry Potter movies in one day. This is just Sorcerer's Stone, because it's all I have finished right now. I'm going to finish the other ones. It took me forever. I posted this, I created it May of 2022. So that being said, I don't mention Robbie Coltrane's death in there at all. It hadn't happened yet. And also, it's made for YouTube, and I intended to post it on YouTube, but for the last, 7 months, me and YouTube have been fighting over it, because it's copyright content, and they're really icky about that, and, well, the thing is, it's not the whole video. It's not the whole movie. You can't sit and watch the whole movie because I cut out chunks of the movie. It's just me. I only have the bits where I'm commentating. So, I mean, like, and there's some editing in there, so it's not strictly the movie, and I have sufficient commentary, so it's not just, just stealing somebody's, stuff and posting it myself. Also, this is free, and all of them, when I post the rest of them, will be free. I don't want to make money off of Warner Brothers stuff. But that's the good thing about Patreon is Patreon will let me post it on my Patreon page, and they don't care. They said nothing about it. So here it is. It was supposed to be on YouTube, and I say some things that are more relevant to YouTube, but here it is on Patreon because Patreon will let me post it. So that's basically the whole point of me starting out talking about this, because I want you guys to know that I watch Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I recorded it. And if you want to see it, it's right here on my Patreon. It is free right there, link in the description. But if also you would like to enjoy my writing, or if you would like to just support me as a content creator, which would be super, super cool, you could do it there as well. And like I said before, do me a huge favor and click on the heart there, because that lets me know that you interacted with it. And I'll know if I get, I'd like to get at least 10 hearts on this because I put a lot of work into it, and I would like to be able to post the next one. So please do that for me. Please and thank you. Okay. All right. Enough of me begging for your love and attention. Okay. Enough of that. Actually, I could probably get rid of that tab. Where is it? I hope I didn't spend too much time talking about that. I don't think so. So I don't want to spend too much time doing that. I want to do what we're really here for, which is some more Harry Potter. All right, so today we're reading more Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and we're reading my favorite chapter. Yay! We are reading chapter 25, The Egg in the Eye. Yes. Now, very important. As we're reading this, I realize that I am a 31-year-old female. This was an exciting chapter for me when I was a teenager. It's still exciting for me, but in a different perspective. It makes me go back to being 13 years old, and reading this. Was I 13? 13, 12, I don't know, something like that. And it just takes me back. Okay? So it's not creepy. I hope. But anyway, so yeah, it's my favorite chapter, because it reminds me of how happy it made me as a teenager, if that makes sense. Okay, but anyway, we'll get back to that in a minute. Oh, gotta say my things. Leave a like on the stream. That would be great if you could do that for me. And leave a comment in the comment section or in the chat section. Turn on notifications. Oh, become a subscriber. I'm almost to 60 subs. I'm so excited. Turn on notifications. I will be going live next week. If you want to know when, follow me on Twitter. Link in the description. Patreon, also linked in the description. And also TikTok and Instagram, also in the description. I just posted a new TikTok, and you can see it on all of my socials. It's a clip of what you can see from the Harry Potter video that I posted on my Patreon. So, enjoy that if you would like. Okay, and recap of chapter 24. Chapter 24, you could take it or leave it. Okay, so chapter 24 was Rita Skeeter Scoop. And Harry and Ron. Hermione and Ron had a fight that they are not talking about because this is right after the Yule Ball. They just discovered somehow that Hagrid is half giant. Surprise! And apparently that's a big deal. They go to their Care of Magical Creatures lesson after Christmas break, and instead of finding Hagrid, they find Professor Grubbly Plank, and they want to know where Hagrid is. Seems to be hiding because of a newspaper article that Rita Skeeter posted about him called Dumbledore's Giant Mistake, and where she reveals to everybody that Hagrid is half giant. And Malfoy said some awful things that were untrue. They are confused as to how Rita Skeeter found out about this fact about Hagrid. They didn't see her in the garden, or did they, when they were eavesdropping? Harry has been lying to everybody, telling everybody that he has figured out the egg and what the next task is going to be, but he is lying. He has no idea. They end up going to Hogsmeade, hoping to run into Hagrid there, but he is not there. They run into Bagman instead, and Bagman is being awful shady with a group of shady goblins. And he is trying to cheat, or to get Harry to cheat, and to request help on the egg in the second task. But Harry refuses, like a good boy. They run into Rita Skeeter in the Three Broomsticks as well, and Hermione is upset by the way that she has treated Hagrid, and there's possibly going to be consequences for that. They end up going straight to Hagrid and encountering him being quite miserable in his cabin, and Dumbledore's there trying to comfort him and to explain to him that he is not this horrible thing, that he is a lovely thing that at least half the Wizarding World loves, and that he should not listen to all the awful things that his haters are saying about him. And Dumbledore insists that he come back to work immediately. And Harry has at last decided he will take Cedric's advice and go to the prefect's bathroom and to mull things over in the hot water with his egg to see what it's all about. And now we're on chapter 25, where Harry is going to do that. So we will read this until about 9 o'clock, and then we'll write some fan fiction on stream until 9:30, and then I will have my intermission, and after the intermission we'll play some Hogwarts Legacy. But let's begin. Chapter 25, The Egg and the Eye. As Harry had no idea how long a bath he would need to work out the secret of the golden egg, he decided to do it at night, when he would be able to take as much time as he wanted. Reluctant though he was to accept more favors from Cedric, he also decided to use the prefect's bathroom. Far fewer people were allowed in there, so it was much less likely that he would be disturbed. Harry planned his excursion carefully, because he had been caught out of bed and out of bounds by Filch the caretaker in the middle of the night once before, and had no desire to repeat the experience. The invisibility cloak would of course be essential, and as an added precaution, Harry thought he would take the Marauder's map, which, next to the cloak, was the most useful aid to rule-breaking Harry owned. The map showed the whole of Hogwarts, including as many shortcuts and secret passageways, and, most important of all, it revealed the people inside the castle as minuscule labeled dots, moving around the corridors, so that Harry would be forewarned if somebody was approaching the bathroom. On Thursday night, Harry sneaked up to bed, put on the cloak, crept back downstairs, and just as he had done on the night when Hagrid had shown him the dragons, waited for the portrait hole to open. This time it was Ron who waited outside to give the fat lady the password, banana fritters. "Good luck," Ron muttered, climbing into the room as Harry crept out past him. It was awkward moving under the cloak tonight, because Harry had the heavy egg under one arm and the map held in front of his nose with the other. However, the moonlit corridors were empty and silent, and by checking the map at strategic intervals, Harry was able to ensure that he wouldn't run into anyone he wanted to avoid. When he reached the statue of Boris the Bewildered, a lost-looking wizard with his gloves on the wrong hands, he located the right door, leaned close to it, and muttered the password, "Pine Fresh," just as Cedric had told him. The door creaked open. Harry slipped inside, bolted the door behind him, and pulled off the invisibility cloak, looking around. His immediate reaction was that it would be worth becoming a prefect just to be able to use this bathroom. It was softly lit by a splendid candle-filled chandelier, and everything was made of white marble, including what looked like an empty, rectangular swimming pool sunk into the middle of the floor. Now that I think about it, I think it's more accurate in Hogwarts Legacy than in the movie as to what it looks like. About 100 golden taps stood all around the pool's edges, each with a different colored jewel set into its handle. There was also a diving board. Long white linen curtains hung at the windows. A large pile of fluffy white towels sat in a corner, and there was a single golden-framed painting on the wall. It featured a blonde mermaid who was fast asleep on a rock, her long hair over her face. It fluttered every time she snored. Sorry, I just saw my favorite. Anyway, Harry moved forward, looking around, his footsteps echoing off the walls. Magnificent though the bathroom was, and quite keen though he was to try out a few of those taps, now he was here, he couldn't quite suppress the feeling that Cedric might have been having him on. How on earth was this supposed to help solve the mystery of the egg? Nevertheless, he put one of the fluffy towels, the cloak, the map, and the egg at the side of the swimming pool-sized bath, then knelt down and turned on a few of the taps. He could tell at once that they carried different sorts of bubble bath mixed with the water, though it wasn't bubble bath as Harry had ever experienced it. One tap gushed pink and blue bubbles the size of footballs. Another poured ice-white foam so thick that Harry thought it would have supported his weight if he'd cared to test it. A third set heavily perfumed purple clouds hovering over the surface of the water. Harry amused himself for a while turning the taps on and off, particularly enjoying the effect of one whose jet bounced off the surface of the water in large arcs. You know what? I think we found the swimming pool. I just thought of that. Did you know that here at Hogwarts we've got a hidden swimming pool? I'm gonna write that down. Then, when the deep pool was full of hot water, foam, and bubbles, which took a very short time considering its size, Harry turned off all the taps, pulled off his pajamas, slippers, and dressing gown. Probably not in that order. And slid into the water. The bubbles are important. It was so deep that his feet barely touched the bottom, and he actually did a couple of lengths before swimming back to the side and treading water, staring at the egg. I would enjoy that so much. I love swimming. I'm a swimmer myself. Highly enjoyable though it was to swim in hot and foamy water with clouds of different colored steam wafting all around him, no stroke of brilliance came to him, no sudden burst of understanding. Harry stretched out his arms, lifted the egg in his wet hands, and opened it. The wailing, screeching sound filled the bathroom, echoing and reverberating off the marble walls. But it sounded just as incomprehensible as ever, if not more so with all the echoes. He snapped it shut again, worried that the sound would attract Filch, wondering whether that hadn't been Cedric's plan, and then, making him jump so badly that he dropped the egg, which clattered away across the bathroom floor, someone spoke. It's my favorite part of the movie, too. It's probably my favorite part ever. Out of any of the Harry Potter movies, it's probably... No, I forgot. Half-Blood Prince is pretty great. Half-Blood Prince is my favorite. So... I'm trying to think of what my favorite scene is in the movie. Oh, yeah. Felix Felicis. Duh. That's my favorite scene in the book, too. I'd try putting it in the water if I were you. Harry had swallowed a considerable amount of bubbles in shock. He stood up, sputtering, and saw the ghost of a very glum-looking girl sitting cross-legged on top of one of the taps. It was moaning Myrtle, who was usually to be heard sobbing in the S-bend of a toilet 3 floors below. "Myrtle!" Harry said in outrage. I'm not wearing anything!" That's my favorite. Well, let's just say, as a teenager, it was then I discovered my sexual orientation. Let's just say that. I think that's fair. Well, actually, it might have been more when I first watched Chamber of Secrets for the first time on DVD. The first time Harry spoke and his voice was deeper. My world was changed forever. Poor 11-year-old me. He never stood a chance. Anyway. The foam was so dense that this hardly mattered, but he had a nasty feeling that Myrtle had been spying on him from out of one of the taps ever since he had arrived. "I closed my eyes when you got in," she said, blinking at him through her thick spectacles. Yeah, "You haven't been to see me for ages." Yeah. Yep. Harry Potter was he the first? Was he the first crush I ever had? Probably. The first serious crush I ever had was Harry Potter, hands down. Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, they were kind of the same when I was a kid. Yeah. Fond memories. "Yeah, well," said Harry, bending his knees slightly just to make absolutely sure Myrtle couldn't see anything but his head. "I'm not supposed to come into your bathroom, am I? It's a girl's one." "You didn't used to care," said Myrtle miserably. "You used to be in there all the time." This was true, though only because Harry, Ron, and Hermione had found Myrtle's out-of-order toilets a convenient place to brew Polyjuice Potion in secret. A forbidden potion that had turned him and Ron into living replicas of Crabbe and Goyle for an hour, so that they could sneak into the Slytherin common room. I got told off for going in there, said Harry, which was half true. Percy had once caught him coming out of Myrtle's bathroom. I thought I'd better not come back after that. Oh, I see, said Myrtle, picking out a spot on her chin in a morose sort of way. Well, anyway, I'd try the egg in the water. That's what Cedric Diggory did. Have you been spying on him too? Said Harry indignantly. What else are you gonna do as a ghost? This is probably the most fun she's ever had. What do? Sneak up here in the evenings to watch the prefects take baths? Sometimes, said Myrtle rather slyly. But I've never come out to speak to anyone before. I'm honored, said Harry darkly. You keep your eyes shut. He made sure Myrtle had her glasses well covered before hoisting himself out of the bath, wrapping the towel firmly around his waist, and going to retrieve the egg. Once he was back in the water, Myrtle peered through her fingers and said, Go on, then. Open it under the water. Harry lowered the egg beneath the foamy surface and opened it. And this time, it did not wail. A gurgling song was coming out of it, a song whose words he couldn't distinguish through the water. You need to put your head under too, said Myrtle, who seemed to be thoroughly enjoying bossing him around. Go on. Harry took a great breath and slid under the surface. And now, sitting on the marble bottom of the bubble-filled bath, he heard a chorus of eerie voices singing to him from the open egg in his hands. Come seek us where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground. And while you're searching, ponder this. We've taken what you'll sorely miss. And now along you'll have to look, and to recover what we took. But past an hour the prospect's black. Too late, it's gone, it won't come back. Harry let himself float back upward and broke the bubbly surface, shaking his hair out of his eyes. Hear it? Said Myrtle. Yeah. Come seek us where our voices sound, and if I need persuading... Hang on, I need to listen again. He sank back beneath the water. It took 3 more underwater renditions of the egg's song before Harry had it memorized. Then he trod water for a while, thinking hard, while Myrtle sat and watched him. I've got to go and look for people who can't use their voices above the ground, he said slowly. Who could that be? Slow, aren't you? He had never seen Moaning Myrtle so cheerful, apart from the day when a dose of Polyjuice Potion had given Hermione the hairy face and tail of a cat. Harry stared around the bathroom, thinking, if the voices could only be heard underwater, then it made sense for them to belong to underwater creatures. He ran this theory past Myrtle, who smirked at him. Well, that's what Diggory thought, she said. He lay there talking to himself for ages about it. Ages and ages. Nearly all the bubbles had gone. Underwater, Harry said slowly. Myrtle, what lives in the lake, apart from the giant squid? Oh, all sorts, she said. I sometimes go down there. sometimes don't have any choice if someone flushes my toilet when I'm not expecting it. Trying not to think about Moaning Myrtle zooming down a pipe to the lake with the contents of a toilet, Harry said, "Well, does anything in there have a human voice? Hang on." Harry's eyes had fallen on the picture of the snoozing mermaid on the wall. "Myrtle, there aren't mer-people in there, are there?" "Ooh, very good," she said, her thick glasses twinkling. It took Diggory much longer than that. And that was with her awake, too. Myrtle jerked her head toward the mermaid with an expression of great dislike on her glum face, giggling and showing off and flashing her fins. "That's it, isn't it?" said Harry excitedly. "The second task's to go and find the mer-people in the lake, and... But he suddenly realized what he was saying, and he felt the excitement drain out of him as though someone had just pulled a plug in his stomach. He wasn't a very good swimmer. He'd never had much practice. Dudley had had lessons in his youth, but Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon, no doubt hoping that Harry would drown one day, hadn't bothered to give him any. A couple of lengths of this bath were all very well, but that lake was very large and very deep, and mer-people would surely live right at the bottom. "Myrtle," Harry said slowly, "how am I supposed to breathe?" At this, Myrtle's eyes filled with sudden tears again. "Tactless," she muttered, groping in her robes for a handkerchief. "What's tactless?" said Harry, bewildered. "Talking about breathing in front of me," she said shrilly, and her voice echoed loudly around the bathroom. When I haven't, not for ages." She buried her face in her handkerchief and sniffed loudly. Harry remembered how touchy Myrtle had always been about being dead, but none of the other ghosts he knew made such a fuss about it. "Sorry," he said impatiently. "I didn't mean... I just forgot." "Oh, yes, very easy to forget Myrtle's death," said Myrtle, gulping, looking at him out of swollen eyes. "Nobody missed me, even when I was alive. Took them hours and hours to find my body." "I know. I was sitting there waiting for them. Olive Hornby came into the bathroom. 'Are you in here again, sulking, Myrtle?' she said, 'because Professor Dippet asked me to look for you.' And then she saw my body. Ooh, she didn't forget it until her dying day. I made sure of that. Followed her around and reminded her I did. I remember at her brother's wedding." But Harry wasn't listening. He was thinking about the mer-people's song again. "We've taken what you'll sorely miss." That sounded as though they were going to steal something of his, something he had to get back. What were they going to take? "And then, of course, she went to the Ministry of Magic to stop me stalking her, so I had to come back here and live in my toilet." So ghosts can leave their place of haunting, apparently. "Good," said Harry vaguely. "Well, I'm a lot further on than I was. Shut your eyes again, will you? I'm getting out." And before you start thinking that I'm a creep, just remember that in the movie, Daniel Radcliffe was like 16. And the actress who played Moaning Myrtle, Shirley Henderson, she was like in her 30s. So, similar situation here, huh? He retrieved the egg from the bottom of the bath, climbed out, dried himself, and pulled on his pajamas and dressing gown again. How is there more? Okay. I was like, wow, we're already figuring it out. It's going to be a short chapter, but no, apparently something else happens. He retrieved the egg from the bottom of the bath. I've read that. "Will you come and visit me in my bathroom again sometime?" Moaning Myrtle asked mournfully as Harry picked up the invisibility cloak. I'll try," Harry said, though privately thinking the only way he'd be visiting Myrtle's bathroom again was if every other toilet in the castle got blocked. "See you, Myrtle. Thanks for your help." "Bye-bye," she said gloomily, and as Harry put on the invisibility cloak, he saw her zoom back up the tap. Out in the dark corridor, Harry examined the Marauder's map to check that the coast was still clear. Yes, the dots belonging to Filch and his cat, Mrs. Norris, were safely in their office. Nothing else seemed to be moving apart from Peeves, though he was bouncing around the trophy room on the floor above. Harry had taken his first step back toward Gryffindor Tower when something else on the map caught his eye. Something distinctly odd. Peeves was not the only thing that was moving. A single dot was flitting around a room in the bottom left-hand corner. Snape's office. Oh, yeah. But the dot wasn't labeled Severus Snape. It was Bartimus Crouch. Oh, yeah. I forgot all about that. Harry stared at the dot. Mr. Crouch was supposed to be too ill to go to work or to come to the Yule Ball. So what was he doing, sneaking into Hogwarts at 1 o'clock in the morning? Harry watched closely as the dot moved around and around the room, pausing here and there. Harry hesitated, thinking, and then his curiosity got the better of him. Doesn't it always? He turned and set off in the opposite direction toward the nearest staircase. He was going to see what Crouch was up to. Harry walked down the stairs as quietly as possible, though the faces in some of the portraits still turned curiously at the squeak of a floorboard, the rustle of his pajamas. He crept along the corridor below, pushed aside a tapestry about halfway along, and proceeded down a narrower staircase, a shortcut that would take him down 2 floors. He kept glancing down at the map, wondering. It just didn't seem in character somehow for correct, law-abiding Mr. Crouch to be sneaking around somebody else's office this late at night. And then, halfway down the staircase, not thinking about what he was doing, not concentrating on anything but the peculiar behavior of Mr. Crouch, Harry's legs suddenly sank right through the trick step Neville always forgot to jump. Neville did this in an earlier chapter, and I mentioned that the reason why J.K. Rowling is mentioning it only now is because it's going to be relevant later. This is the later. He gave an ungainly wobble, and the golden egg, still damp from the bath, slipped from under his arm. He lurched forward to try and catch it, but too late. The egg fell down the long staircase with a bang as loud as a bass drum on every step. The invisibility cloak slipped. Harry snatched at it, and the Marauder's map fluttered out of his hand and slid down 6 stairs, where, sunk in the step to above his knee, he couldn't reach it. The golden egg fell through the tapestry at the bottom of the staircase, burst open, and began wailing loudly in the corridor below. Harry pulled out his wand and struggled to touch the Marauder's map to wipe it blank, but it was too far away to reach. Whoops. Pulling the cloak back over himself, Harry straightened up, listening hard with his eyes screwed up with fear, and almost immediately, Peeves! It was the unmistakable hunting cry of Filch the caretaker. Harry could hear his rapid, shuffling footsteps coming nearer and nearer, his wheezy voice raised in fury. What's this racket? Wake up the whole castle, will you? I'll have you, Peeves. I'll have you. You'll... And what is this? Filch's footsteps halted. There was a clink of metal on metal, and the wailing stopped. Filch had picked up the egg and closed it. Harry stood very still, one leg still jammed tightly in the magical step, listening. Any moment now, Filch was going to pull aside the tapestry, expecting to see Peeves, and there would be no Peeves. But if he came up the stairs, he would spot the Marauder's map. and invisibility cloak or not, the map would show Harry Potter standing exactly where he was. Egg? Filch said quietly at the foot of the stairs. My sweet. Mrs. Norris was obviously with him. This is a Triwizard clue. This belongs to a school champion. Harry felt sick. His heart was hammering very fast. Peeves! Filch roared gleefully. You've been stealing! He ripped back the tapestry below, and Harry saw his horrible, pouchy face and bulging, pale eyes staring up the dark and, to Filch, deserted staircase. Hiding, are you? He said softly. I'm coming to get you, Peeves. You've gone and stolen a Triwizard clue, Peeves. Dumbledore'll have you out of here for this, you filthy, pilfering poltergeist. Filch started to climb the stairs, his scrawny, dust-colored cat at his heels. Mrs. Norris's lamp-like eyes, so very like her master's, were fixed directly upon Harry. He had had occasion before now to wonder whether the invisibility cloak worked on cats. Sick with apprehension, he watched Filch drawing nearer and nearer in his old flannel dressing gown. He tried desperately to pull his trapped leg free, but it merely sank a few more inches. Any second now, Filch was going to spot the map or walk right into him. Filch, what's going on? Filch stopped a few steps below Harry and turned. At the foot of the stairs stood the only person who could make Harry's situation worse. Snape. He was wearing a long gray nightshirt, and he looked livid. I can't imagine that. Snape is always in his long black cloak. It's Peeves, Professor, Filch whispered malevolently. He threw this egg down the stairs. Snape climbed up the stairs quickly and stopped beside Filch. Harry gritted his teeth, convinced his loudly thumping heart would give him away at any second. Peeves, said Snape softly, staring at the egg in Filch's hands. But Peeves couldn't get into my office. This egg was in your office, Professor? Of course not, Snape snapped. I heard banging and wailing. Yes, Professor, that was the egg. I was coming to investigate. Peeves threw it, Professor, and when I passed my office I saw that the torches were lit and a cupboard door was ajar. Somebody had been searching it. But Peeves couldn't— I know he couldn't, Filch, Snape snapped again. I seal my office with a spell none but a wizard could break. Snape looked up the stairs, straight through Harry, and then down into the corridor below. I want you to come and help me search for the intruder, Filch. Oh, I wrote notes on the side and I didn't know what they were about until I read further down the page. Yes, Professor, but Filch looked yearningly up the stairs, right through Harry, who could see that he was very reluctant to forego the chance of cornering Peeves. Go, Harry pleaded with him silently. Go with Snape. Go. Mrs. Norris was peering around Filch's legs. Harry had the distinct impression that she could smell him. Why had he filled that bath with so much perfumed foam? The thing is, Professor, said Filch plaintively, the headmaster will have to listen to me this time. Peeves has been stealing from a student. It might be my chance to get him thrown out of the castle once and for all. Filch, I don't give a damn about that wretched poltergeist. It's my office that's clunk, clunk, clunk. Snape stopped talking very abruptly. He and Filch both looked down at the foot of the stairs. Harry saw Mad-Eye Moody limp into sight through the narrow gap between their hands. Moody was wearing his old traveling cloak over his nightshirt and leaning on his staff as usual. Pajama party, is it? He growled up the stairs. Now, isn't it interesting that Moody would be here? What's Moody doing walking around here in the middle of the night? What's he up to, I wonder? Oh, and I wrote, yes, Mr. Filch and Snape are having a pajama party. Wouldn't be the first time they had been shady together. Exactly. It makes me think of the first one, Sorcerer's Stone, when Harry walks in on them And Filch tending to Snape's wound on his leg? Like, the way it's worded sounds really sus, because Harry walks in and it's like, and Snape had his robes up over his knees, or something like that. It's like, I know what's going on here, but this sounds weird. uh. Professor Snape and I heard noises, Professor, said Filch at once. Peeves the poltergeist, throwing things around as usual. And then Professor Snape discovered that someone had broken into his office. Shut up, Snape hissed at Filch. Moody took a step closer to the foot of the stairs. Harry saw Moody's magical eye travel over Snape, and then, unmistakably, onto himself, because his eye can see through invisibility cloaks. Harry's heart gave a horrible jolt. Moody could see through invisibility cloaks. He alone could see the full strangeness of the scene. Snape in his nightshirt, Filch clutching the egg, and he, Harry, trapped in the stairs behind them. Moody's lopsided gash of a mouth opened in surprise. For a few seconds, he and Harry stared straight into each other's eyes. Then Moody closed his mouth and turned his blue eye upon Snape again. Did I hear that correctly, Snape? He asked slowly. Someone broke into your office? It is unimportant, said Snape coldly. On the contrary, growled Moody. It is very important. Who'd want to break into your office? A student, I dare say, said Snape. Harry could see a vein flickering horribly on Snape's greasy temple. It has happened before. Potion ingredients have gone missing from my private store cupboard. Students attempting illicit mixtures, no doubt. Reckon they were after potion ingredients, eh? Said Moody. Not hiding anything else in your office, are you? Harry saw the edge of Snape's sallow face turn a nasty brick color, the vein in his temple pulsing more rapidly. You know I'm hiding nothing, Moody, he said in a soft and dangerous voice, as you searched my office pretty thoroughly yourself. Moody's face twisted into a smile. Aura's privileged, Snape. Dumbledore told me to keep an eye. Dumbledore happens to trust me, said Snape through clenched teeth. I refuse to believe that he gave you orders to search my office. Of course Dumbledore trusts you, growled Moody. He's a trusting man, isn't he? Believes in second chances. But me? I say there are spots that don't come off, Snape. Spots that never come off, if you know what I mean. Snape suddenly did something very strange. He seized his left forearm convulsively with his right hand, as though something on it had hurt him. Wow, geez, what more is there? I gotta wrap it up. Gotta get to the fan fiction writing. Snape suddenly... Oh, I read that. Moody laughed. Get back to bed, Snape. You don't have the authority to send me anywhere, Snape hissed, letting go of his arm as though angry with himself. I have as much right to prowl the school after dark as you do. Prowl away, said Moody, but his voice was full of menace. I look forward to meeting you in a dark corridor sometime. You've dropped something, by the way. No, I didn't! That's mine! With a stab of horror, Harry saw Moody point at the Marauder's map, still lying on the staircase steps, 6 steps below him. As Snape and Filch both turned to look at it, Harry threw caution to the winds. He raised his arms under the cloak and waved furiously at Moody to attract his attention, mouthing, It's mine, mine. Snape had reached out for it, a horrible expression of dawning comprehension on his face. Accio parchment. The map flew up into the air, slipped through Snape's outstretched fingers, and soared down the stairs into Moody's hand. My mistake, Moody said calmly. It's mine. Must have dropped it earlier. That's not suspicious at all. But Snape's black eyes were darting from the egg in Filch's arms to the map in Moody's hand, and Harry could tell he was putting 2 and 2 together, as only Snape could. Potter, he said quietly. What's that? Said Moody calmly, folding up the map and pocketing it. Potter! Snape snarled, and he actually turned his head and stared right at the place where Harry was, as though he could suddenly see him. That egg is Potter's egg. That piece of parchment belongs to Potter. I have seen it before. I recognize it. Potter is here. Potter in his invisibility cloak. Snape stretched out his hands like a blind man and began to move up the stairs. Harry could have sworn his overlarge nostrils were dilating, trying to sniff Harry out. Trapped, Harry leaned backward, trying to avoid Snape's fingertips, but any moment now. "There's nothing there, Snape," barked Moody, "but I'll be happy to tell the headmaster how quickly your mind jumped to Harry Potter." "Meaning what?" Snape turned again to look at Moody, his hands still outstretched, inches from Harry's chest. "Meaning that Dumbledore's very interested to know who's got it in for that boy," said Moody, limping nearer still to the foot of the stairs. "And so am I, Snape. Very interested." The torchlight flickered across his mangled face so that the scars and the chunk missing from his nose looked deeper and darker than ever. Snape was looking down at Moody, and Harry couldn't see the expression on his face. For a moment, nobody moved or said anything. Then Snape slowly lowered his hands. "I merely thought," said Snape in a voice of forced calm, "that if Potter was wandering around after hours again, it's an unfortunate habit of his. He should be stopped. For his own safety." "Yeah, okay." "Ah, I see," said Moody softly. "Got Potter's best interests at heart, have you?" There was a pause. Snape and Moody were still staring at each other. Mrs. Norris gave a loud mew, still peering around Filch's legs. "Oh, meow. Mew is when they actually make... Never mind. Mew is a word too, but it's not spelled like that. Let me reread the sentence. Mrs. Norris gave a loud meow, still peering around Filch's legs, looking for the source of Harry's bubble bath smell. "I think I will go back to bed," Snape said curtly. "Best idea you've had all night," said Moody. "Now, Filch, if you just give me that egg." "No," said Filch, clutching the egg as though it were his firstborn son. "Professor Moody, this is evidence of Peeves' treachery." "It's the property of the champion he stole it from," said Moody. "Hand it over, now." Snape swept downstairs and past Moody without another word. Filch made a chirruping noise to Mrs. Norris, who stared blankly at Harry for a few more seconds before turning and following her master. Still breathing very fast, Harry heard Snape walking away down the corridor. Filch handed Moody the egg and disappeared from view too, muttering to Mrs. Norris, "Never mind, my sweet. We'll see Dumbledore in the morning. Tell him what Peeves was up to." A door slammed. Harry was left staring down at Moody, who placed his staff on the bottommost stair and started to climb laboriously toward him, a dull clunk on every other step. "Close shave, Potter," he muttered. "Yeah, thanks," said Harry weakly. "What is this thing?" said Moody, drawing the Marauder's map out of his pocket and unfolding it. Map of Hogwarts," said Harry, hoping Moody was going to pull him out of the staircase soon. His leg was really hurting him. "Merlin's beard," Moody whispered, staring at the map, his magical eye going haywire. This is some map, Potter. Yeah, it's quite useful, but Moody can't give it back to him." His eyes were starting to water from the pain. Professor Moody, do you think you could help me?" "What? Oh, yes. Yes, of course." Moody took hold of Harry's arms and pulled. Harry's leg came free of the trick step, and he climbed onto the one above it. Moody was still gazing at the map. "Potter," he said slowly, "you didn't happen, by any chance, to see who broke into Snape's office, did you? On this map, I mean." Yeah, I did," Harry admitted. "It was Mr. Crouch." Moody's magical eye whizzed over the entire surface of the map. He looked suddenly alarmed. Crouch, he said. You're sure, Potter? Positive, said Harry. Well, he's not here any more, said Moody, his eyes still whizzing over the map. Crouch. That's very, very interesting. He said nothing for almost a minute. He's thinking, what do I do? What do I do? Still staring at the map, Harry could tell that this news meant something to Moody and very much wanted to know what it was. He wondered whether he dared ask. Moody scared him slightly. Yet Moody had just helped him avoid an awful lot of trouble. Professor Moody, why do you reckon Mr. Crouch wanted to look around Snape's office? Moody's magical eye left the map and fixed, quivering, upon Harry. It was a penetrating glare, and Harry had the impression that Moody was sizing him up, wondering whether to answer or not, or how much to tell him. Put it this way, Potter, Moody muttered finally. They say old Mad-Eye's obsessed with catching dark wizards, but I'm nothing compared to Barty Crouch. He continued to stare at the map. Harry was burning to know more. Professor Moody, he said again, do you think... Could this have anything to do with... Maybe Mr. Crouch thinks there's something going on. Like what? Said Moody sharply. Harry wondered how much he dare say. He didn't want Moody to guess that he had a source of information outside Hogwarts that might lead to tricky questions about Sirius. I don't know, Harry muttered. Odd stuff's been happening lately, hasn't it? It's been in the Daily Prophet. The Dark Mark at the World Cup, and the Death Eaters and everything. Both of Moody's mismatched eyes widened. You're a sharp boy, Potter, he said. His magical eye roved back to the Marauder's map. Crouch could be thinking along those lines, he said slowly. Very possible. There have been some funny rumors flying around lately. Helped along by Rita Skeeter, of course. It's making a lot of people nervous, I reckon. A grim smile twisted his lopsided mouth. Oh, if there's one thing I hate, he muttered, more to himself than to Harry, and his magical eye was fixed on the left-hand corner of the map. It's a Death Eater who walked free. Yep, and he is 100% honest about that. Wink, wonk, wink, wonk. Because he, yeah. If you know why he's saying that. Harry stared at him. Could Moody possibly mean what Harry thought he meant? No. And now I want to ask you a question, Potter, said Moody in a more business tone. Okay, that's how he does it. I couldn't remember. Harry's heart sank. He had thought this was coming. Moody was going to ask where he had got this map, which was a very dubious magical object, and the story of how it had fallen into his hands incriminated not only him, but his own father, Fred and George Weasley, and Professor Lupin, their last defense against the dark arts teacher. Moody waved the map in front of Harry, who braced himself. Can I borrow this? Oh, said Harry. He was very fond of his map, but on the other hand, he was extremely relieved that Moody wasn't asking where he'd got it, and there was no doubt that he owed Moody a favor. Yeah, okay. Good boy, growled Moody. I can make good use of this. This might be exactly what I've been looking for. Right, bed, Potter. Come on now. They climbed to the top of the stairs together, Moody still examining the map as though it was a treasure the like of which he had never seen before. They walked in silence to the door of Moody's office, where he stopped and looked up at Harry. See, Moody can't let him have the map, because then Harry will see who Moody really is. In fact, spoiler alert, Harry already saw who he really is. You ever thought of a career as an Auror, Potter? He'd be good at it. That's what he becomes, actually. No, said Harry, taken aback. You want to consider it, said Moody, nodding and looking at Harry thoughtfully. Yes, indeed. And incidentally, I'm guessing you weren't just taking that egg for a walk tonight. No, said Harry, grinning. I've been working out the clue. Moody winked at him, his magical eye going haywire again. Nothing like a nighttime stroll to give you ideas, Potter. See you in the morning. He went back into his office, staring down at the Marauders' map again, and closed the door behind him. Harry walked slowly back to Gryffindor Tower, lost in thought about Snape and Crouch and what it all meant. Why was Crouch pretending to be ill if he could manage to get to Hogwarts when he wanted to? What did he think Snape was concealing in his office? And Moody thought he, Harry, ought to be an Auror. Interesting idea. But somehow Harry thought, as he got quietly into his four-poster 10 minutes later, the egg and the cloak now safely back in his trunk, he thought he'd like to check how scared the rest of them. No! Let me reread that. Interesting idea. But somehow, Harry thought, as he got quietly into his four-poster 10 minutes later, the egg and the cloak now safely back in his trunk, he thought he'd like to check how scarred the rest of them were before he chose it as a career. And that's the end of chapter 25. We're getting closer to the end. And the chapter we'll be reading next weekend is chapter 26, The Second Task. Exciting. All right. Now, chip, chop, chip. It's time to get some writing done. We're a little late. We'll have about 20 minutes. I already wrote some this morning. So I'm a little further along, but not quite that far. I'm not a fast writer. You might figure out. Okay, so I have music that we will play. As we do so. First, let's read what we have. Should we start from the beginning? Or should we start from where we last left off? We'll start from where we last left off. What we wrote last time, I mean. We left off... How far did we get? You know what? I'm just going to read the whole thing because I want to. Okay. So this is chapter 3 of In Your Shoes. It's my fan fiction, my Harry Potter fan fiction, where Harry and Draco swap places. And things get a little crazy. This is chapter 3. Draco's stomach churned as he set foot into the Charms classroom in Harry's shoes. He was late, of course, for he had to return to Gryffindor Tower to change clothes. Thankfully, some late first years were rushing out of the portrait hole, for Draco didn't know the password to get in. Everyone stared at him as he entered the classroom full of seated students. It was as if they could see right through him. Professor Flitwick scowled at him. "You're late, Mr. Potter." "Sorry," Draco muttered, still uncomfortable with Harry's voice in his mouth. At first he was unsure of where to sit, but Ron and Hermione caught his eye, and he remembered that he was supposed to be friends with them. They signaled for him to join them, puzzled at his hesitation. He sat down. "Where were you?" That's not the right word, I just realized. Hermione whispered anxiously as Flitwick started the lesson. "Ron said you were upset about something." Draco didn't want to answer her. He hated being only a seat away from her. Yeah, what happened this morning? Are you okay? I'm fine, Draco said curtly. I was afraid... Well, Ron started. He lowered his voice further. I thought maybe you had another dream. What? Draco said, thoroughly confused. You know, about you-know-who. Draco spoke without thinking. Potter has dreams about the Dark Lord? Were Ron and Hermione serious? Draco had to stop himself from scoffing. How pathetic, he thought. Fighting the Dark Lord wasn't enough during the day. He had to be special in his sleep, too? Ron and Hermione looked at him as if a horn was growing out of his head. That was when Draco realized he had said something wrong. I mean, yeah, it was a rough one, Draco postured. I won out in the end, though. Draco's friends' faces were moving quickly from bewilderment to worry. But the discussion ended there because Professor Flitwick asked everyone to pick a partner to practice the Muffliato charm. I changed that. It was originally the silencing charm, but I realized that's not exactly what it does. I don't know what it's called, actually. So that's what I called it. Practice Muffliato charm. We'll figure it out later. It seemed that Hermione and Ron had no desire to be Harry's partner today, so they chose each other. Draco didn't know who to partner with. He wasn't familiar with Harry's friendship with anyone apart from Ron and Hermione, and it seemed that everyone else was taken. Then someone from across the room approached him, a girl Draco had never met. Hello, Harry, the girl said. Do you need a partner? Draco was stunned for a moment. He had never seen this girl before, and she was incredibly attractive. He never would have believed he'd think that of a Gryffindor girl. She had thick, curly black hair, curves in all the right places, and legs for days. Yeah, Draco said smoothly, suddenly finding himself. What's your name again? You've forgotten my name, she giggled. It's Romilda. Romilda Vane. Romilda Vane, where had she been all his life? And this is where I started to write. Yes, Romilda, of course, Draco recovered effortlessly. I was stunned by your beauty and lost myself for a moment. Romilda's face had a mixture of emotions, a mingling of confusion and pleasant surprise. Harry, what are you doing? Hermione whispered from nearby. Her face told Draco everything he needed to know about his behavior. Draco surmised Harry didn't usually speak to Romilda this way, or speak to her at all, but Draco didn't care. She was gorgeous. Maybe we should practice over by my seat. Romilda gave Hermione a scathing side glance. It's a little crowded over here. Draco agreed. He got up and followed her across the room, leaving Ron and Hermione with their mouths agape. Noise was sporadic around the room at this point. Everyone was casting the Muffliato charm with varying degrees of success. One could tell who the successful ones were because their partners were shouting at them. Seamus Finnegan was yelling so loudly at his partner, Dean Thomas, that the other Gryffindors around them began casting Muffliato on themselves. If you're unfamiliar, Muffliato is the charm that when you cast it, the people around you, if they get close to you, they can only hear a muffling, like a fuzziness in their ears, so they can't overhear your conversation. If you're unfamiliar, okay, so let's turn on some music. Hold on. I should probably plug in my headphones. That's probably a good idea. Just, throwing that out there. YouTube might hate me. We shall see. Some Harry Potter dubstep. Very fun. Uh-oh. Shut up, ad. Oh, no. Mute. Play. Let the ad play. Skip. Don't want it too loud. Okay, so how are we continuing this? Okay, so I already kind of thought about the conversation that he and Romilda are going to have. Draco and Romilda spent some time pretending to care about the lesson. Their appearances. Luckily, Romilda grasped the spell right away. Luckily, Romilda grasped the spell right away, for it made it possible for them to talk and no one overhear them. I should probably explain what the Muffliato spell does. Let's do this. Also, supposedly they already know this spell because Harry uses it in Chamber of Secrets, which I didn't remember. Let's do this. I'll do this. Now you all have mastered this spell by now, I'm sure. Now you all have mastered this spell by now, I'm sure, but it will be on your newts. So we are practicing for review. Thing is, they're not taking their newts till next year, so I don't know why that would be relevant now. Let's see. Now you all have mastered the spell by now, I'm sure. Flitwick explained. But it will be on, oh, yeah, that's why I couldn't do it, because B wasn't in there. But it will be on your newts next year, so we are practicing for review, and one cannot be too prepared too soon. Maybe we should put this somewhere else. No, that's fine. bits. Draco and Romilda spent some time pretending to care about the lesson for appearances. Luckily, Romilda grasped his spell right away. Luckily, Romilda already had a... Is Romilda in the same year as them? I just realized. She is now, in this universe. So, I think she is. I thought maybe she might be a 5th year, though. I don't actually know. I should check that. Luckily, Romilda already had firm is what I meant to say. Had a firm grasp of the spell. Already had a firm grasp of the spell. For it made it possible for them to talk and no one overhear them. Here, let me explain what the Muffliaddle charm is. That causes passerby ears to go fuzzy, so they cannot eavesdrop on the caster's conversation. A charm that causes passerby ears to go fuzzy, so they cannot eavesdrop on the caster's conversation. But the discussion ended there because Professor Flitwick asked everyone to pick a partner to practice the Muffliaddle charm. A charm that causes passerby ears to go fuzzy, so they cannot eavesdrop on the caster's conversation. I'll probably word that better later. I want to get to the juicy bits. So, started, initiated. So, began. Started. I'm sure there's a better word. So, Romilda started. Why the sudden change of heart? Draco stared at her. She smiled at him inquisitively. Inquisitively? Sure. What do you mean?
Clearly, fame isn't everything.
I mean... you would barely associate with me before. But now, to be... study partners. What's changed? I forget what I was gonna have him say. Draco's having trouble paying her attention. She was more fun to look at than to listen to.
There's no good and evil. There is only power. Those too weak to see it.
I mean, you better associate with me before. But now you're willing to be study partners. What's changed? Draco was having trouble paying her attention. She was more fun to look at than to listen to. Well, I just hadn't realized how lovely you are. Whatever I have said. No. I just hadn't realized how lovely you are until now. Uh-huh. She didn't sound convinced. Listen,
Because I have something worth living for.
I love that. I love it when they put Dan's voice in the song. I love hearing his voice. Anyway. Maybe we should get out of here. Run away together. Listen. No. This song is fun. I gotta stop. I want to get to a good bit. Here. She didn't sound convinced. So I suppose you wouldn't be opposed.
Get ready for this!
So I suppose you wouldn't be opposed to having lunch with me later. I feel like they should probably have a little more conversation before this. I would not.
Get ready for this!
What about Jenny? Who? 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 You're oh, yeah. Draco then remembered that Harry was in a relationship with Ron's little sister. He hadn't known her name until then. He hadn't known her name until then.
Get ready for this.
This would be it. Man, these are some funky tunes. He hoped to persuade. He hoped to persuade. To forget about her. That was a mistake, if I'm honest. Draco answered. She's a potato face. Finally. I thought you'd never agree. Alright, we should wrap it up. I think it needs some tweaking. There needs to be a little bit more substance, but we'll leave it there for now. I'm going to take my intermission. That's a good place to pause it. Pause my funky tunes. Okay, so I'm going to take my 15-minute intermission. While that is happening, feel free to like the stream, comment in the comment section or in the chat section, and become a subscriber if you're not subscribed already. Turn on notifications so you can be notified the next time I go live. I'll be going live next week. If you want to know when, follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Also in the description is my Patreon if you'd like to support me as a content creator, or if you'd like to read my writing. I also have I have free stuff on there as well for you to enjoy if you can't afford to become a patron. And I also have a TikTok and an Instagram, link in the description. And when I come back, we will play some Hogwarts Legacy.